We
are
We are
cultivate.
Cultivate.
We are cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and joining me today is a very special guest, D. Paul Fleming. D. Paul is a disabled veteran who served in the U.S. Navy and a seasoned Native American holy man, a sacred title bestowed upon him by Granddaughter Crow. With a lifetime devoted to spiritual service, D. Paul has investigated and cleansed an untold number of haunted properties, encountering everything from mischievous poltergeists to dark entities so powerful that his own life has been placed in danger on more than one occasion. His work has brought physical, spiritual, and emotional healing to people afflicted by dark attachments, malevolent energies, and even possession. And today, we'll be discussing his book, Mysteries at the Windham Inn, The Feral Feline, which was released October 1st, 2025. The book is described as, on a bitterly cold December morning, nearly 280 years ago, a young woman named Elizabeth was executed. Twice. With the governor's pardon in hand, her father was within musket shot when the noose finally stopped twitching. Ms. Elizabeth's last breath swept across the hills and hollows as though the trees themselves carried her immortal curse through every limb, root, and fallen leaf. Her father, frozen by his failure, fell from his horse and swore an unholy promise to avenge his daughter's persecution. Make no mistake, Ms. Elizabeth's execution was not her end, not by a long shot. Revenge, karma, reincarnation, and the timeless war between good and evil are all at play in Windham County's most infamous property. Dark spirits and vengeful forces battle for dominance, seeking to claim the souls that once lived within the brick walls of this historical landmark. Though tales and mysteries often drift into myth, Ms. Elizabeth's story has never truly faded. For centuries, she's been seen walking the family farms, drifting through cornfields, lingering by the roadside, peering through windows, haunting the descendants of those who robbed her of life, justice, and land. Land that now lies beneath a building known as the Windham Inn. D. Paul?
Dun, dun, dun.
Welcome to the podcast.
Dun, dun, dun. Holy mackerel, I gotta get me a copy of that book. Lindsay, how we doing? Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Doing all right. So I know I just read a whole bunch of stuff about you and the book, but from your own words, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about you?
280 years ago, where can I start? I've had quite a colorful life. Where do you want to start, Lindsay?
I guess, what inspired you to write this book? Let's start about how that ties in.
I'm gonna do my best to keep these answers short.
Okay.
But my mouth has a way of just rambling along. So feel free to throw something at the computer screen, and that's my indicator to wrap it up. All right. I'll be honest with you. I still find it hard to believe that I'm a writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a storyteller. I've always been a storyteller, but I'm not educated. I'm certainly not book smart. I barely get out of high school. I talked my way into college, but that was construction college. But I, kind of gave that up after a short run. So I don't know anything about publishing. I don't know anything about writing. I certainly don't know how to spell, right? I mean, I'm still not sure the difference between an adverb and an adjunct professor. So if you put a lot of money on the table, I wouldn't be able to give you an answer on either. So becoming a best-selling author is kind of awe-inspiring for me. And I got to be honest, the credit is due to the great spirit above. I've got some talent, but, not to the level of the success of what I'm able to craft onto paper and ink.
Mm-hmm.
The lead-in, the way it kind of, I sit here and I listen to it and I'm like, who the heck wrote that, man? That guy's got to be smart, right? It's humbling to hear someone like you read those words aloud, but anyway, long story short, I wrote some books that are a lot heavier than the Mysteries at the Windham Inn. Talk about my childhood and abuse that I survived through. And then I wrote a book called A Date with Suicide, which addresses the the reasons why so many veterans, 50 plus a day, are taking their lives. And in telling those stories, I had a lot of people come out and say, man, it's like being on a fly on the wall reading your books. I can feel the emotions. I can see the what you type. I see when I'm reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to this, and I'm kind of looking around going, man, who in the heck are they talking to? But the reality is I can do a pretty good job writing, but the heart of the stories come from experiences, and the energy that's imprinted into the words are from Great Spirit. And when I type, and by the way, thank God for spell check, Google, and the ability to craft on a computer, because if a publisher or an editor had to take my raw transcript without a computer, it would look like I'm typing in Russian. I'm a storyteller at heart, and God had a bigger plan for me to write stories, and here I am.
So the book, it doesn't start in the traditional sense. Like you kind of were plunked into the middle of the story. Why did you choose to do it that way? It was very interesting
Well, you just answered the question, didn't you?
because it was interesting. Yeah.
Right. Because it was very interesting. So again, when you're telling a story, right? When you're sitting around your table, or a campfire, if
Yep.
we can go there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And somebody starts telling a story, somebody's got to back up and say, wait, what's the beginning?
Yeah.
And then somebody else will say, man, we don't need the beginning. Tell the story.
Yeah.
Right. So I like diving in with 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
If you read my biography, if you will, the opening line in that thing, the first 3 words, you're hooked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shh, or crazy will hear us. Okay. That's the beginning of that book. Okay. And to a person who have read it, and I've had many, many 5-star reviews, it is emotional. It grabs you quickly and pulls you in. And then the way I write, again, I consider it a gift. It just flows and keeps going and going. And I don't like to get lost in the story. And I shouldn't say it like that. I don't like to, how do I want to say this? I don't like waiting.
Okay.
Okay. I like putting stuff out there so that the reader is constantly thinking, constantly engaged. It's like, wait a minute. When you write a novel that
Mm-hmm.
people are actually writing notes on the pages, you've got something interesting going on.
Yep.
So when you read the mysteries at the Windham Inn, listen, you better bring a scorecard, because it's going to take you on twists and turns that'll make you read this thing 2, 3, 4 times. The first review that came out from Chrissy, she wrote in there, I had to read this thing multiple times, and I looked forward to it, because each time I did, I picked up more and more and more. And the key to this is the mysteries part. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That spelling drives editors insane.
Yep.
Okay. Now remember what I said, adjunct, professor, and a pronoun, or whatever my example is.
Yeah.
I can't tell the difference. The spirit world's the one that told me how to write that title. So I did. And they told me, you're going to get a reaction. They just
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell me what kind of reaction. So being a non-college boy, I've gotten a hell of a lesson on what happens when you misspell a
Mm-hmm.
word. So it's had the same effect as what you just said. The books that I write and the stories that I tell, you're diving in with 2 feet and 1 arm and no parachute.
Yeah, you just kind of from the first page, you're in it. Like there's
Let's
no
go.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no fluff. There's no. It was a warm meadow day in a quiet
Yep.
village on the east side of it. And 30 pages later, you get to the main character.
Yep.
This starts out with, the day started out like crap, and you're never gonna guess what happened next. Boom, here we go.
Yep. Yep. Now the story, it centers around 2 Elizabeths. How are the 2 connected? Or are you able to spoil it by saying how they're connected?
Ooh, ooh. Well, clearly, you know your stuff. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's a question nobody's had the courage to ask me yet, or the foresight. Okay, so let me give you a direct answer. You're gonna have to read the series to figure it out.
I
Okay,
figured you were going to say that.
and I have to be careful, because you're one of the few people who's picked up as quickly as you have about what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, most people are still trying to figure it out. But I'll give you a hint. You have to understand spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm not talking about the Bible and all that. I'm talking about how the soul works and that type of spirituality. And pay attention to the opening line in the introduction to the book, right after the ...
Mm-hmm.
Twice. She
Yep.
was hanged twice because the first time didn't take. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I think you said there's two Miss Elizabeth. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? In book 3 of the series, the title for book 3 is the hanging of Miss Elizabeth, because book 1 and book 2 kind of build you up to that
Mm-hmm.
point. Okay. In book 3 and book 4, you'll get a good sense of an answer of what you just said.
Okay.
Right?
Is the location based on a real location?
Absolutely. This is literally a caricature of the actual picture that I took and sent to the publisher. Okay.
Okay.
To do the book cover. Okay.
Okay.
And I told them what I want, and I let them, they're the ones that came up with this. And when I
Okay.
saw it, I went, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you read the book and you see the subtitle, the feral feline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what a trickster is, a demon,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you pick it up, you're starting to, you're picking it up, and putting it down,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Fun stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Book 2 of the series is the feral feline meets the pesky orb.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hint, 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 hint.
Hint, hint, hint.
Pesky orb.
What is the significance of Master Gary's character?
So Master Gary's a very real person.
Okay.
So are the rest of the characters,
Okay.
right? Father Leroy, he is in charge of the Catholic parish right in downtown Willimantic, romantic Willimantic. Okay,
Okay.
these places are very, very real. Okay. Master Gary Jackon and the Jackon clan, or as the folks translate it and say it poorly, the Zekin, okay, because it's a Polish clan that I grew up with these guys. I grew up with this whole family.
Yep.
Okay. Gary and I were thick as thieves prior to freshman year, 9th grade. He went one way and I went another. But we were tight, through 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And he ended up living at the Windham Inn. And I didn't know this. I mean, I went into service and then, kind of got married and did a lot of stuff. So the Windham Inn, where my wife and I moved to, isn't far from where we live. Right? We've lived here now for 30, 40 years. I don't remember. But Gary showed up at my house one day, pulls in on his motorcycle, true story, okay, pulls in and says, I got to talk to you. I haven't seen him in years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, he starts telling the story just 2 minutes into the conversation about this black cat that he used to have in his dreams. Okay, now you've read the story, so you know
Yeah.
where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he would wake up screaming, trying to get this cat off of him. Okay, because he was certain this cat was attacking him. And
Mm-hmm.
he'd turn his light on, and there was no cat in his room. Okay, and he'd have scratch marks and claws, and okay. What really got him in trouble was the time his girlfriend saw the scratches on his back. And try explaining
Oh.
that to your lady friend. How'd you get the scratches on your back, Master Gary?
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, there is a ghost cat in this building that, okay, the crazy part is she knew it already. Okay. So
Okay.
that's how the whole thing kind of started, with Gary telling me about some of his experiences and the black cat being the critical one. Now, I'd heard about this cat and the stuff that was going on there for a long time, and I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. I could see the ghost there, and I knew a lot of stuff that was in there, but I didn't pay much attention to it. When Gary came and told that story, it kind of clicked, and now I'm hearing in the back of my head, that's your next novel. And I'm listening, I'm looking at myself and going, what the heck am I going to do with the mysteries of the Windham Inn? And then I started having flashes of what I'm supposed to do and say and so on. And that's how it kind of started. So Master Gary in the book is a real person. So is his brother. So is Miss Amy. And here comes the fun part. So is the narrator.
I figured. I was like, there's got to be. I was like, she has to be real. She has to be a real entity.
Have you ever met anybody that has truly had a ghost writer?
No.
People ask me all the time, do you have ghostwriters for your books? And I say yes. And they go, oh, so that's who's writing your books. And I said, no, I write the books, but the ghosts tell me what to say. Okay. And they get a little freaked out, right? And then they
Yep.
read the book and they get really freaked out.
Yeah. So now I'm curious. Who is
Do-do-do-do.
who is Theodore based off of?
That's a secret.
Damn it! Son of a bitch!
Oh, I had you right up at the edge of that seat.
Ah.
Who is going to tell me Theodore?
Theodore comes across as, and I don't know if this is intentional or if this is, and you won't tell me, and that's okay. He comes across like the ghostly personification of Dopey from the Seven Dwarfs. Like his
Really?
mannerisms, how he kind of like is all like very exaggerated and animated with his actions, the like, the gestures, how he's flopping around and just like this over the top character. That's who I picture is Dopey. And whether that's right or wrong, that's who I picture when I'm reading that.
Oh man, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Listen, wait till you get to the end of book 2.
Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, I got to be honest with you, and don't tell anybody else. Right? Wink, wink.
Like weakness
Okay.
nudge.
But that's a pretty good impression that I was desperately trying to paint early on. Okay. But the fun part of what I am and who I am is I kind of I didn't see folks like you kind of telling me what you're seeing. Okay.
Mhm.
And yet I knew it was coming. Okay. I don't see the character the same way you do, but then again, I see it exactly the way you do. And what do I mean by that? When we sit back and we're ourselves, our normal self,
Mhm.
right? We kind of look at the world in a certain way. And then when we're typing and creating this story, all right, especially one that's not fiction,
Mhm.
okay? You know, it's strange how we distance ourselves from the character. We know what we want to do, so we're kind of poking and pointing at it and getting this thing right. And then you step back and you're like, all right, I hope it works. And along comes Lindsay and says, hey, that really worked.
That's Dopey.
Right?
That's Dopey.
Right?
When you were writing about the holy men and the rituals that were mentioned in the book, did you draw that from your own experiences?
Oh, they are very real. They are extremely real. The dance that the ghost taught Miss Amy, okay, that is, if I took that description and brought it to a cleansing or a clearing, that's exactly what you do.
Okay.
Okay. So, I don't lay it out in the true ritual sense, okay, which is what I do day in and day out, right?
Mhm.
But it's meant to kind of make people think, is that real?
Mhm.
Okay. The answer is yes. It's very real. There are certain things that you can do to push away darkness. And what I want to convey, and not just mystery series, but all the things that I write, is that, instilling hope, right, is to me kind of magical. You can write something that somebody else will look at it and say, that didn't inspire hope or anything in me. And somebody else will say, oh, those words really inspired me. So I try to craft these things so that the average person doesn't know anything about spirituality can see this ceremony that Miss Amy had to go through to clear herself can be done by anybody, right?
Mhm.
You can make fun of it, you can laugh at it, and you can also be deadly serious about it.
Mhm. In your dealings with the seen and the unseen, do they appear to you in the fashions in which you describe the entities in the novel? Like how they kind of appear as like lights and shadows, orbs, and I was really intrigued by how you described the Watchers. That was cool. But yeah, I guess like the entities that you mentioned in the book, like is how you describe them, is that how you interact with them, how you see them or perceive them?
Yes,
That's awesome.
yes, that's very perceptive, Lindsay. That's very perceptive. But the direct answer is yes.
Okay. That's cool. How much of the story of Ms. Elizabeth is based on stories? Like the aspect involving protection stones that we talked about and the giant boulder. Are those two, is her story, because they're connected? I'm like going back and I'm revisiting the book. How are they connected? And is it based on truth?
All right. There was a lot of questions in there, and I understand why. Okay. because, it's a very intriguing story.
Mm-hmm.
So let me start off by saying this. To the best of my knowledge, it's all true.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I'm talking to the living who witnessed it, and I'm talking to the ghosts who want their side of the story told.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here comes a really wild ride. The Shaw family is still here, right in the heart of Windham Center. I did earlier this week or last week, I don't remember. I did a radio interview on 1400 WILI in the heart of romantic Willimantic. Okay,
Nice.
with Wayne Norman, who's been there for, Christ, 60 years, 50 years. He's been there since I was a kid. In the interview, I mean, it really took off when we started talking. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he says to me, "Listen, this book is about the Shaw family, right?" And I says, "Well, it is Elizabeth Shaw. She
Mm-hmm.
was hanged up on the hill, right?" And she goes, "Well, I know the Shaw clan, and I was just talking to them a couple of weeks ago, and she was telling me stories, and she says that Miss Elizabeth is seen up on High Street, which is probably 5-7 miles from the Windham Inn."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Really?" Okay, because I didn't know this. But as soon as he said that, it clicked with me because that's right up the hill from St. Joseph's Church. And when you read the book, you're going to pick up that an angel that lives at St. Joseph Church came out of the church to come help in a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right? Bang,
Yep.
bang, bang.
Yep.
Okay. Bang, bang, bang. Right?
Yep.
So when he was saying these things, I could see the pieces coming together of the puzzle, some of the ones that I'm missing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the original ancestors of Miss Elizabeth are still here. Now, I knew all this, but I've never met the original clan member that Wayno was talking about. But he started telling how many stories that he's heard about this woman on the side of the road and police reports and fire departments dispatched and so on and so on. I mean, these are facts you can easily, figure out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Look up and research, right?
Yep.
What I didn't understand was how much more knowledge is out there until I released this book, and the flood of people coming forward to tell their story is just unbelievable.
That's cool. What should we know about the witches of Hampton?
Well, funny you ask, right? There's a there's a book in there, right? This whole Mysteries at the Windham Inn could probably be a 20 or 30 book series. I mean, that's just how much with the different directions that they take me in,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Witches of Hampton. This is an incredibly true, without mixing words or adding any literary license, if you will.
Okay.
The Witches of Hampton. We've got to pay attention to the Salem witch trials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Salem is, 100 miles north of 150 miles north of Windham,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's 90 miles to Boston. So it's not that far. But the reason that Miss Elizabeth was hanged twice, the Salem witch trials were kaput. All right. The government stepped in, and all the New England colonies, the governors had said, no more of this. Okay.
Yep.
It started with Massachusetts, and then it kind of came through, and everybody said, no more burning witches at the stake. This is over.
Yep.
Okay. Otherwise, they would have burned Miss Elizabeth at the stake. So the question is why? And you're walking right down the path of the why by asking about the witches of Hampton, which start out as the Gray Ladies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got to kind of know a little bit of history, and I do feed it in there, but in book 3 and 4, you start getting a little better flavor of it because it explains how the rock, the boulder, was broken. Okay.
Gotcha.
It's a
Gotcha.
heck of a story. A year or two before I started writing this book, I'm at my sister's house. Okay. And I was doing some work because some dark stuff had gotten in, blah, blah, blah. And as I'm preparing to do this, I'm searching the area and I can see the natives and all that stuff. And across the street, all right, I'm seeing these, what I'll call pilgrims, all right? They're these women in blue dress, white aprons,
Mm-hmm.
and the classic bonnet,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Right out of the 1600s,
Yep.
okay? And they would come right up to the edge of the road, okay? And they would stand there and they would watch me. And there's a lot of them. So I didn't know a thing about the Hampton witches. All right. Now, actually, it's more than a couple of years before. It's probably 4 or 5 years before I wrote the book that I first figured this piece out. Anyway, So I've been curious as to who these people were. All right,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't pay much attention then. So I started doing a little research, and I reached out to a couple folks in the community that I'm in. And I said, "Hey, what do you know about these people?" One lady says, "Oh my God, I can tell you volumes." And I said, "Okay, start talking."
Yep.
Well, guess where my sister lives? Hampton. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So, so as she's telling me this, I'm like, so are they witches, these colonial era people I'm seeing? She says, oh, yeah. And they're very dangerous. And I said, son of a bitch, I just connected the dots because I've got my sister's property protected with all this white light and all kinds of stuff. Okay. But for some reason, they kept getting through, and I couldn't understand why. And I didn't understand at the time how to protect against these particular about against that particular entity. Okay,
Sure.
once I did, I understood what to do. Now here's how it plays out, and this is how these women are, and they're spirits, but they're batshit crazy. Okay, brilliantly crazy. So they got pissed off that I had put up all this protection around my sister's property and so on. Okay, so I can hear them talking, and they're gonna get me. They're gonna get me. Yeah, yeah. I've heard that a million times.
Yeah.
So some time goes by. I go to my sister's house again. We're doing something family wise, and as all of a sudden I start hearing this car crashing into this tree, and I'm go out in the front yard and I look, and there's nothing there, right? And I turn around, walk back in. I hear the crash again. This time I can hear this noise, this high pitched whine. All right, it wasn't an engine. It was either a wolf or a person. Now,
Okay.
there's no wolves in Connecticut, theoretically. We believe now some are back. But middle of the day, close to the road, not happening.
Yep.
So I kind of tune in, I open my senses up and I start watching. And I see this race car, a souped up 70s style muscle car just peeling out on the road. And this road's in the middle of nowhere of Hampton, Connecticut, right? And this woman appears out of nowhere right in front of the car. The car swerves and crashes into this huge oak tree right across the street from my sister's house. Okay. So I'm seeing all this playing out in my head. All right. And I'm watching it literally on the street like a video in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this woman in this blue and this apron and her bonnet. And she turns and looks at me, and she's mouthing the words, "I'll get you." Okay. And I'm like, is this real? So I walk up, look across the street. Sure enough, all the bark is peeled off of this tree. Okay. And I'm saying, oh shit, this was an accident. I don't think it was that long ago. I
Mm-hmm.
go back inside and I look at my brother-in-law and I say, hey, did you guys have an accident over there? He says, yeah, a couple weeks ago. And I describe the accident to a T. And he says, you haven't been here in months. How did you know? I go, I watched it in my head. And I said, the witches caused that from happening. He turns as white as you're going to get and says, the kid driving the car swore to God, to the police department, that anybody would listen. This woman from the 1600s jumped into the road and he chased off the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I confirmed something that nobody else, and the kid was a neighbor to my sister and her family,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So they knew the kid, they knew the family, and everybody kabajed the kid because he was making up this BS story
Mm-hmm.
until I come around and say, I saw what happened. So the witches of Hampton are not only very real, they're still active as the day is long in the Hamptons. Okay. And as we like to say, we have a summer house in the Hamptons, of course, not the Hamptons of Long Island, but the Hamptons with the witches. Okay.
Yeah.
And that all stemmed from the Windham Inn, the property at the Windham Inn.
Okay. So then what do the witches have to do with the boulders?
Book 3.
Jesus. Okay.
There's a lot of twists in this thing.
There are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, imagine being me and trying to keep all of this in your head and then trying to put it into some kind of timeline, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do 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 do
Yeah, that's
do do
crazy.
do do.
No wonder you jumped right in. Like,
All right, we got to get this story going. Let's go.
yeah, exactly. I mean, one of my questions was, book one ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, and
Dun,
you've and
dun,
you and
dun.
you've essentially just said, yes, not only is book two already done, but there's three and four.
Yeah.
So there are more books to come in this series. When do you anticipate book two will be released?
Oh, it's done.
Okay.
It's done. I'm just I'm just letting it manifest, right?
Letting it percolate for a little while.
I looked at one of the reviews, okay, and this poor woman. Oh Lord, this poor woman. She gives me this 5-star review on Amazon that starts with, "You suck." Okay? LOL, right? Right? Bang, bang, bang. Why I oughta. Okay.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, I've never had a book that kept my attention like this book. Couldn't put it down, is what she was saying. And then I can feel her screaming at me when she says, "Get me to the conclusion."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And here's my style of writing. Listen, man, I'm an old guy. You have to learn patience.
Patience is
Patience.
a virtue.
Right?
Yep.
Right? And that's something that, I've read a lot of books in the last 5-10 years, a lot of books, especially since I fully retired. Every book, they don't draw it out. They, not in a bad way, but it's so mandated that there's everything has to be now, 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 right? There's no buildup and long-term suspense and getting the reader to come to their own conclusions. Now I really don't know you, Lindsay, but I've
Mm-hmm.
got to say this. You have a lot of brain smart. Okay. You have a lot of, what's the word I want to use? I'm not sure of the word, but you get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand that there's so much more to this. And if you can let the reader allow their imagination to run, it is so much more fun,
Yep.
right? Than
Yep.
giving them the answers and writing these. I mean, seriously, this is going to kill you. Book 2, right? The final chapter is chapter 32. It's half the length of the book. One chapter. Okay. Now watch, right? Intelligent people like yourself go, "Oh my God, you can't do that." Right? It's like, "Oh my God, you can't do that." No, it's got to be 26 chapters a book and it's got to be 1,000. It's got to, no, 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 no,
Yep.
don't do it. Right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So that's what I'm going to go. That's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But pay attention to who I am.
Yep.
I'm a Hyoka, right? What's a Hyoka? Clown, the gesture, the Native American who rides backwards through the village on his horse. Okay. Definitely want to get people to get out of their comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and live what you're reading,
Mm-hmm.
right? Lindsay,
Yep. Yep.
you spent $20 on the damn book. Okay. I'm giving you your money's worth. And if it means you suck, here's a 5-star rating. Okay. Where do I start? Oh my God. Right. Listen, if you can
Yeah.
get that reaction out of a person, it doesn't much matter how many stars they put after your, thank you for this. You sold them a book
Yep.
and you gave them an adventure. You won't get bored reading my stuff, will you?
No. I enjoy reading books where you have to think and it makes you question things. Like I figured this has to be a real location that it's too well described to not be a real place. The people and the characters, I use the term characters loosely, that are in the book are too well described to not have some aspect of reality tied to them. Like I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I could picture it. I could picture the line of creepy witches across the street, doing like you can't hear what they're saying, but they're saying something weird and creepy because they're creepy witches. And, they're just like being weird. And I could see the feral feline, you know, and very much, how it's trickster, like how you described it. It would change, and it had this persona, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him away from you, and then what? Then you're gonna have to wait how much longer for another person like Master Gary to show up to help you with what you're trying to accomplish. Tee hee, like it's just like I could perfectly like see that as I was reading the book. And yeah, you do a very good job of making you feel the sense of urgency while at the same time like things move slowly. Does that make sense? Like,
Crazy, isn't it?
yeah.
Right? It's drawn out and it's constantly hitting bells and tones and dings and dongs and bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah. Son of a bitch.
Right? Right?
Well, is there, and you're probably just going to be like, you're going to have to wait and find out. But I'm going to ask the question anyway, because you might surprise me. Is there anything else we didn't discuss that you would like our listeners to know about Mysteries at the Windham Inn?
Man, I'm telling you, you hit on quite a few of the points. What is your sense of the relationship between the narrator and Master Gary? What did you pick up from book one?
I very much get the sense that he is potentially a reincarnation of a past lover, and that perhaps he doesn't realize that that's what he is and who he is, and she's trying to find a way to remind him of who he actually is.
Once again, Lindsay, pulling it out of the woodwork. Well done. Well done. You see how that makes you think?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to come up with your own concepts of what the hell is going on.
Yep.
Okay? Great job.
Thank you.
So here's the one thing that few people have been able to pick up so far, because I really haven't said a lot about it. Even in the radio interview, I touched on it, but I kind of didn't go in too deep. There's a reason behind the spelling. There are mysteries inside the mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There are coded references and a cipher that the reader needs to figure out. And as the books progress in the series, more and more of the secrets are going to be revealed, but they're not going to be revealed in plain language.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to have to figure it out. Okay. And why is that being done? That's one of my first questions when I'm trying to figure out from the living and the ghosts and the spirits and the other goblins that are hanging around this place. Why are we doing this? And they referred me back to a dream that I had a couple of years before I wrote this book, started writing it. Okay. And that dream was that before I say that, let me say this.
Okay.
At the same time, a friend of mine who is a psychic, and he did 20 years in the Navy as a corpsman, all right, medic,
Okay.
right? So he started this paranormal group called Eastern Connecticut Paranormal. Great group. Okay. They've probably done every old library in the state of Connecticut. All right. There's 169 towns in the state of Connecticut. So it's not that crazy to say you can do that, right?
Yep.
So he was a gifted psychic. Okay. And he did 2 investigations in the Windham Inn. Okay. Before they did a public showing of the second investigation, him and I met beforehand, and he was telling me about some things that were going on in there. And as he's telling me these things, I'm hearing and I'm sensing things, but it wasn't making sense because I'm talking with a guy who can see and do things that I can do. Right.
Yep.
So of course he's setting up his protection, and he's a medic, and he's been doing this for forever. He knows what he's doing, right?
Yep.
Okay. So as this thing's unfolding, I'm going back and I'm looking at my dream log, because the spirit world said pay attention dream log. And in it says, when you write the book, you have to tell them that there will be 3 investigators whose lives will be sacrificed before the final mystery inside the Windham Inn will be revealed. Okay? All right. So I knew I needed to put that in book 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Again, I didn't know then it was going to be this long-term series. All right. But when I had released this book, A Date with Suicide, he had said to me, listen, I want to meet with you because I got a lot of guys I want to help too. That's one of the key things we do is help fellow vets.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I reach out, and he doesn't call me back. A month goes by, 6 weeks go by, he doesn't call me back, right? I figure he's busy. And then about the 2-month point, I was just on the internet and I saw this thing come up from Eastern Connecticut State Paranormal. And it said there will be a memorial service for, and I went, oh my sweet Jesus. Okay. My dream book, 3 will have to, okay. And there goes 1, right? So now I'm a little bit on edge.
Mm-hmm.
So I go talk to some of the spiritual advisors that that take care of me and help me and so on. And I have some questions for them. And I said to them, was it? And they said, yes, in part. He had other issues. Okay. But yes, something got a hold of him and took him down. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I said, how worried should I be about this place? And he said, very. Okay, the shit you're writing about not only doesn't want you telling a story, okay, they
Mm-hmm.
don't want people to know. They want to collect those souls themselves, and they don't want the attention and the white light that I'm shining on them. And when she said that, I went, got it. And I now understand what I have to do. Didn't truly understand the exact path of how to get there, but I knew the core of what I needed to accomplish. And in book 3, it starts coming out with paranormal investigators. Okay.
Okay.
And honestly, TAPS, I don't know if you're familiar with TAPS,
Yes, yes, yes.
they did an investigation into the Windham Inn, and they didn't find, I don't think they found anything.
Hmm.
Okay. And even my friend who did 2 investigations, they got a picture of a kid and a few other things. Okay. But here's where I really pissed people off. I went and took just one photo of the Windham Inn, but when I did it, I called to the spirits and I said, hey, show yourself. Come on in, show yourself. And I snapped a photo and then I blow it up and I put it online and I says, you folks tell me how many pictures of ghosts you see in that window. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people have responded with anywhere from 6 to 12.
Okay.
For me, I can see a whole lot more. All right. But TAPS couldn't find any ghosts. Okay. And I can. So people are asking me why. And I said, it's very simple. You have to understand that the spirit world is not meant to be out here for everybody to see. Okay.
Sure.
And when they open themselves up to us, they also open themselves up to the dark side. Okay.
Sure.
So it would be like a normal person playing with the Ouija board
Mm-hmm.
without any protection. Right.
Yep.
You're just calling out to everything out there from hell to high water.
Mm-hmm.
You've opened yourself up for them to come in. Well, that's the same thing that happens to ghosts when they show themselves to the living. They open themselves up to the dark side. At the end of the day, the whole game is about capturing the dark side, capturing people's souls.
That made me think of something. Was Douglas always able to see the narrator?
I have to tell you, I honestly don't know yet.
Okay.
Now, Douglas, Master Gary's brother, okay, is truly a service member. He spent his time in the military. Okay. And he, like so many of us, kept everything to himself. I didn't start talking about seeing ghosts and all this stuff. I mean, people knew it, but I didn't actively do anything, right? Until about, roughly 10 years ago is when I really would go out there and, start telling my story. And then once I started publishing books, it really came out. I didn't have any interest of kind of publicly telling everybody what I can see, sense, and do
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of reasons. One was I didn't want people to know.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been able to do this my whole life, so it's relatively simple for me. So when I'm writing about another person, especially a living person,
Yeah.
I have to be careful what I want to expose and what I don't want to expose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to find out.
Cool.
Don't know which book, but we're going to find out.
Cool. Well, I think that's where I'm gonna leave it. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
Oh, you got to leave it with everybody wanting more.
Yeah.
Lindsay, you got to leave it with everybody wanting more.
Exactly.
Okay? You want to get yourself tied up into a series that'll make your mind go boo-boo, right?
Exactly.
This book is spooky.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank D. Paul for taking the time to join me today. Again, the book is Mysteries at the Windham Inn, which is available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook. And we will have a link in the show notes so you can purchase a copy of your own on whatever format you prefer. And thank you again so much for joining me today.
Lindsay, great honor chatting with you. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. So keep the faith, keep moving forward.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I'm Lindsay, and we'll see you next time with another tale as old as crime.